The movie begins in the jungle at night. A young boy is buried in the mud, using a bamboo stick to breathe, and he eats stink bugs with disgust. He speaks with an older man's voice, not a child's. The boy claws out of the mud but meets the shaman, boy's mentor, who looks at him with disapproval for failing the test. The shaman buries the boy again. The boy wishes his training had less dirt. Over the years, boy continues his training with the shaman. He learns martial arts, strength training by rolling a statue's head up a hill, and weapons training. Some nights, the shaman gives boy drugs that make him hallucinate. Shaman gives it for only one mission: to kill Hilda van de Kooi, the leader of a nameless, harsh post-apocalyptic city. Boy must do this to avenge his family, as Hilda is directly responsible for his family's deaths. In flashbacks, Boy recounts his simple life despite his mother's eccentricities. She was often seen cleaning guns, clearly resisting the regime. He can't even recall his own voice, so he used the voiceover from his favorite video game to speak his inner thoughts. Despite some challenges, he shared a close bond with his younger sister, Mina. They played games and spent time together. Mina once showed him a plan to rob a bank and escape the city. Boy remembers a day when they discovered a statue of Hilda. Mina raised her whole hand to the sky, claiming to give Hilda the finger with all fingers extended. Boy joined her, raising his hand alongside his sister. However, the regime came for them and selected them for the annual culling, where 12 dissidents are publicly executed to exert control, suppress resistance, and entertain the mostly brainwashed populace. Boy watched as Hilda personally shot his mother and sister. Despite this, he somehow survived. Years later, Boy has pushed his body to its limits under the rigorous training of the shaman and feels nearly invincible, nearly besting the shaman in a fierce duel. However, a hallucination of Mina suddenly appears, distracting him and leading to his defeat. Disappointed, the shaman shakes his head and declares that Boy is not yet ready. One day, they venture into the city, determined to sell their produce. Boy notices a charming flower girl who offers him a flower with a smile. It sparks a thought in Boy's mind that perhaps there could be more to life than just his mission. Just then, soldiers of the regime arrive. To Boy's dismay, the flower girl expresses admiration for the Kois and the culling. Disgusted, Boy crushes the flower in his hand. The shaman quickly pulls Boy around a corner, and they watch the scene unfold from a safe distance. Out of one of the cars emerges Glenn van de Kooi, husband of Melanie van de Kooi and brother-in-law to Gideon van de Kooi. They have arrived to select 12 dissidents for the public executions. Glenn starts delivering a speech written by Gideon but stops multiple times, criticizing its poor quality and its mention of owls, a creature no one in the city has seen. An enraged woman in the crowd shouts insults at him, calling him a coward and a puppet fucker. Glenn reacts by pulling out a gun and challenging her to repeat it, but when she does, he fires, unintentionally hitting someone else and triggering the crowd's fury. They attempt to retaliate against Glenn, but the soldiers, led by head enforcer, June 27th, swiftly quell the uprising with lethal force. In the aftermath, only 6 people are left for the culling, prompting Glenn to order their immediate capture. Boy is determined to go after them, but the shaman insists he is not ready. Defying his mentor, Boy pursues them and ultimately manages to hide in the trunk of Glenn's car. At a warehouse, Gideon scolds Glenn for causing a massacre and failing to gather 12 people for the culling. Glenn retorts that he will smooth things over with Melanie. When Melanie arrives, Glenn immediately blames Gideon for the disaster, citing his poorly written speech as the cause. Melanie scolds them both, but instructs Glenn to prepare for the ceremony. She then orders Gideon to grab 6 more people off the street if necessary, insisting they must have 12 for the event. Boy leaves the trunk of the car and begins to navigate through the warehouse. However, the hallucination of Mina persists, and he mentally instructs her via his narration to be quiet and stealthy. Despite this, he keeps forgetting she isn't real, which causes him to inadvertently step into the open where Glenn spots him and sends men after him. Drawing on his training, Boy fights back, using hand-to-hand combat, knives, and the soldiers' own guns against them. Amid the chaos, he encounters a man named Basho, who offers to help kill Hilda if Boy frees him from his chains. Boy agrees, realizing for the first time that he has a teammate. While Boy continues to fight the soldiers, Basho takes cover from the gunfire behind a cart. Eventually, all the soldiers are dead. During that time, Glenn tries to shoot them, but Basho shoots him first in the leg, and they interrogate him to ask about Hilda. During the interrogation, Glenn confesses that Hilda hosts a party at her mansion every year before the culling and offers to help sneak them in. Unfortunately, Basho accidentally drops a vice he was holding in threat, crushing Glenn's head. The both escape from the warehouse, and Basho takes Boy to the secret location of the resistance, only to find it deserted. As they enter, Boy is attacked and is held at gunpoint by Benny, who is quickly calmed by Basho. The two men embrace, and Basho asks Benny where everyone else is. Benny begins to speak, but while Boy can read lips, he realizes Benny is speaking in another language, making everything he says incomprehensible. Despite the language barrier, It becomes clear that Benny is telling Basho that the regime attacked and killed everyone except him. When Basho asks about a woman, presumably his lover, Benny reveals she has been killed. Basho breaks down, and Boy, understanding the situation from context, reaches out to comfort him. Basho then tells Benny about Boy's strength and how he killed all of Hilda's soldiers. Enraged and inspired, Basho also says Benny they will strike back because they know where Hilda will be tonight. They sit Boy down and begin explaining the plan. However, since Benny is explaining it, Boy doesn't understand. Mina's hallucination appears next to him and advises him to just nod to the two men and improvise when the time comes. After that, they drive to the mansion, knocking out a few guards and a chef along the way. They give Boy the chef's clothes to help him blend in. Carrying a cake, Boy enters the mansion but is unsure what to do and gets momentarily distracted by macaroons. Basho sees him and tries to refocus him on the mission, but to no avail. Boy, still hallucinating Mina, tells her to hide while he goes off to do chef things. Going into the kitchen, Boy removes the uniform. The other workers notice and grab knives, revealing themselves as fighters. Boy engages in combat, using a cheese grater to inflict gruesome injuries before dropping it and grabbing a butcher's cleaver. He enters the dining hall, swiftly slitting the throat of a guard before making his way to the head of the table where Hilda sits. In one swift motion, he decapitates her, thinking that he successfully avenged his family. The others at the table scream in horror as Boy realizes he has decapitated the wrong person. Suddenly surrounded by guards and facing Gideon, Boy learns that Gideon orchestrated an elaborate trap using actors to catch unsuspecting members of the resistance attempting to assassinate Hilda. Despite Boy's desire to fight back, he finds himself outnumbered and outgunned. Gideon retreats, leaving June 27th to deal with Boy. June 27th and Boy engage in a fierce battle, exchanging blows with Boy gradually gaining the upper hand. He manages to remove June 27th's helmet, revealing her face. When Boy sees her, he unexpectedly hesitates, giving June 27th the opportunity to push him over the railing and knock him unconscious. His last conscious thought is how he has failed in his mission. As Boy lies knocked out, he dreams of the past. The brutal execution of his mother and sister, the regime's cruel act of cutting out his tongue and being left hanging from a tree. In his memory, the shaman appears, saving him and carrying him into the jungle, determined to train him for the purpose of seeking revenge. Boy regains consciousness, finding himself tied to a chair. June 27th begins punching him, demanding information about the shaman. Boy defiantly mouths, "F you," prompting June 27th to throw an axe towards his head. Before it hits, Gideon intervenes, criticizing June 27th's lack of subtlety and insisting he will handle the interrogation. Gideon asks Boy to cooperate and make things easier for himself, but Boy remains defiant. Respectfully acknowledging Boy's resolve, Gideon orders him to be prepared for this year's public execution. At the studio, Melanie chastises Boy for killing Glenn, as they needed him to host the show. They chain Boy up and fit him with a shock collar. The broadcast commences, and Hilda appears as the host, with Melanie desperately trying to control her due to her unstable behavior. Initially, Hilda manages to maintain composure and enjoys the audience's adoration. However, she spots a shadow in the audience that she mistakes for the shaman. This prompts her to go off script, alarming the audience. Despite Melanie's efforts to ensure she is unarmed, Hilda produces a gun and chaos ensues before she is restrained. Melanie then unveils the spectacle of the culling, set in a winter wonderland with cereal mascots and demonic elves. The chosen 12 victims are subjected to brutal violence, beaten, stabbed, and gruesomely mutilated in front of the horrified audience. Looking on in horror, Boy realizes he must escape. Suddenly, he recalls something. During their conversation, Gideon had slipped him a scalpel. He starts cutting through a rope, freeing himself. Just as he is about to charge towards the stage, Melanie activates his shock collar, incapacitating him. For elves seize him, while a man in a goat costume approaches with a mallet to execute him. As the mallet swings down, it strikes one of the elves. The goat figure then attacks the others and removes its head, revealing its basho underneath. Benny storms in with guns drawn, and the three take cover. In the control room, Melanie is furious that the show is ruined while Gideon is giddy. Melanie screams that she knows he caused this. As he begins to walk away, she grabs a gun and points it at him. He sighs, resigned to his fate. Back on the stage, Boy fights a serial pirate mascot but runs out of bullets. Benny throws him a clip, and Boy reloads, punching the pirate's face and shooting him several times. The three look up, having defeated everyone. However, Benny spots Melanie approaching and pushes Boy out of the way, taking a fatal shot. Boy holds Benny as he dies, his last words once again sounding like gibberish to Boy. Basho is shot as well. Desperate, Boy races up the stage, using a pineapple mascot as a shield, and overpowers Melanie. Boy ties Melanie to a chair, and she, believing she will be executed on air, defiantly tells him to make her a martyr. The camera pans away and then quickly zooms towards her. She screams in vain as the camera crashes into her face, cracking and becoming covered in blood. It pulls back, revealing that Boy has pierced her face with the metal spikes of a panning dolly camera. Her lifeless body slumps to the floor. Boy helps Basho up, who, despite his wounds, insists he will help Boy reach Hilda, reaffirming their partnership. In a hallway, they are swarmed by guards. Basho, unable to continue, tells Boy to go on as he slumps over. Boy remembers his training and his purpose, wielding a sword to slice through every guard. As the blood flows, memories of his dead family, his lost tongue, his torture, and his training flood his mind. When he snaps out of it, all the guards are dead. He looks back to see that Basho has succumbed to his wounds. Determined and with no other choice, Boy presses on, knowing he is so close to his goal. Going down the hallway, Boy finds Gideon slumped over, laughing and noting that their boss encounter won't happen since Melanie shot him. Gideon hands Boy a key card for access to the bunker. Boy readies his sword to strike. Gideon, resigned, tells him to do what he has to. The hallucination of Mina appears, urging Boy not to kill Gideon, reminding him that Gideon helped him. Boy, refusing to show mercy, tells Mina that she is dead and he doesn't need her anymore. Ignoring her cries, he slashes his sword, killing Gideon. Getting on the elevator, Boy is confronted by Hilda on a screen. She warns him that the moment he arrives, her men will gun him down and he will die for nothing. No, Boy narrates, it's not for nothing. He shows Mina's drawing of their bank plan, causing Hilda to gasp and cut the feed. When the elevator doors open, Boy is met by men with guns pointed at him, but they do not fire. June 27th is present, her helmet displaying that Hilda will see him. Boy then drops his sword. Entering a lavish living room, Boy's world begins to swirl as he notices a large painting. His mind fixates on his sole mission in life, to kill Hilda. He sees the painting, which depicts the Coy family. Boy is there, alongside his sister and Hilda. The realization dawns on him. Hilda didn't kill his mother. She is his mother. Hilda approaches Boy, sobbing and apologizing for not recognizing him. She tells him how sorry she is, acknowledging the suffering he endured at the hands of the shaman. She begs him to acknowledge her, to show that he is still her son. Suddenly, Boy remembers everything. He was there that day at the execution, not as a victim but as a spectator and participant. The shaman, his son, the woman he believed was his mother, and her daughter was lined up to be shot. The shaman begged for the children to be spared, but Hilda cursed them for their defiance. She then forced Boy to fire the gun, killing the shaman's son, the woman, and her daughter. When she goaded him into killing the shaman, Boy panicked, firing the gun wildly before running off. Running into the jungle, Boy breaks down sobbing, overwhelmed with guilt over what he has done. He looks up and sees the shaman, who knocks him to the ground and begins to choke him. The shaman stops, deciding he has a better idea. He takes Boy into the forest and, through a brutal combination of torture and mind-altering drugs, erases Hilda from Boy's memory and convinces him that his mother and sister are dead. To ensure Boy's obedience, the shaman cuts out his tongue and deafens him. Boy is horrified as he slowly relearns the truth. He is part of this monstrous family and had unknowingly killed his aunt and uncles. Hilda then reveals another shocking truth. June 27th is actually Mina, the sister he believed to be dead. Boy stands in stunned silence as the weight of his past and present crash down upon him, leaving him to grapple with his true identity and the devastating consequences of his actions. Hilda pleads for a sign from Boy that he still recognizes her as his mother, but Boy is too overwhelmed with shock and horror to respond. Seeing him as a threat, Hilda commands June 27th, who Boy now knows as Mina, to kill him, declaring that her brother is gone. June 27th raises one of her axes, poised to strike, but hesitates. Boy raises his hand, and in that moment, Mina remembers their bond from their childhood, standing defiantly against the regime. Ignoring Hilda's demands, Mina turns around and instead kills her own mother, planting the axe in Hilda's forehead. Taking cover behind a bar, Mina and Boy seize Uzi submachine guns and begin a daring escape, shooting their way out of the compound. Along the way, they confront a heavily armored soldier and a Gatling gun turret. Using the armored soldier as a shield, they charge at the man operating the Gatling gun, overpowering him. Beaten and bloody, Boy and June 27th manage to get into the elevator. June 27th confides in Boy, revealing that Hilda believed he was dead, but she never lost hope that he was alive. Suddenly, the elevator jerks and begins descending. Stepping back out, they confront the shaman. He acknowledges Boy's accomplishments, but insists that their mission isn't finished. Using sign language, Boy expresses understanding of why the shaman manipulated him, realizing the shaman sought revenge by eliminating the Coy family's power over the city. However, the shaman gestures towards June 27th, revealing that not all of the Coy family is dead. He vows to eliminate every last one of them, including Boy if necessary, to fulfill his goal. In a fierce 2-on-1 fight, Boy and June 27th face the shaman. Despite their skills, the shaman initially dominates, inflicting severe wounds. Boy manages to briefly disarm the shaman, but he retrieves the weapon, cutting Boy deeply. Just as the shaman is about to strike, Boy sees a vision of his younger self, realizing the wrongs he's committed. Overcome with guilt, Boy summons the strength to turn against the shaman. He forces the sharp rock into the shaman's neck, ending the fight and the shaman's life. Broken and bloody, Boy reaches his sister, June 27th, who urges him to leave her behind for his safety. Refusing to abandon her, Boy helps June 27th out of the bunker. As they escape the compound, Boy reflects in narration that they will find a way out of the totalitarian city together. With most of the Koi family eliminated, Boy hopes this will lead to lasting peace after years of turmoil under the regime. In the final scene, a flashback shows Boy and Mina in an arcade, playing a fighting game together. Mina asks Boy if he's with her, and Boy responds with his only audible line, "Always." In this way, movie ends here. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more interesting movie recaps.